When kamikaze submarines attacked the US during the final years of World War II, Japan, facing imminent defeat, resorted to desperate measures. While kamikaze planes were well known, fewer people realized that Japan has deployed manned suicide submarines in an attempt to turn the tide of war. This is the story of when kamikaze submarines attacked the United States. By 1944, Japan's situation was dire. The US Navy had established dominance in the Pacific, cutting off supply lines and launching devastating air raids. Outnumbered and outgunned, Japan turned to special attack units, suicide missions designed to inflict maximum damage with minimal resources. The most infamous were the kamikaze pilots. When beneath the waves, another deadly weapon was taking shape, the Titan. The Titan was essentially a manned torpedo, an underwater suicide weapon developed in secrecy. It was designed to be launched from a larger submarine, piloted by a single crew member who would give it towards an enemy warship. Once looked into a target, there was no turning back. The pilot would ride the torpedo to its explosive end. The first confirmed Titan attack on the US occurred on November 20, 1944, targeting the USS a fleet oiler. A Titan launched from the Japanese submarine 147 successfully struck the ship, causing a massive explosion that sank the vessel in minutes. It was one of the few successful Titan missions, but it went shockwaves through the US Navy. Over the next year, Titan attacks increased, with Japanese submarines attempting to break through US defenses. Some were detected and destroyed before they could strike. Others, like those launched with the US fleet off Okinawa, failed due to mechanical issue or strong countermeasures. Through terrifying, the Titan program ultimately had minimal strategic impact. The loss of trained pilots and submarines only hastened Japan's defeat. As Japan surrendered in August 1945, the Titan project came into an abrupt end. The US military recovered several of these suicide submarines, examining their design but ultimately discarding them as impractical. Today, remnants of Titan remain in museums, a haunting reminder of Japan's desperate final days. While Titan submarines failed to turn the tide of war, they remain a chilling example of the extreme lengths Japan was willing to go. Their legacy lives on, not just in history books but in the evolving tactics of modern naval warfare. Suicide missions may have faded from conventional forces, but the concept of asymmetric warfare still looms in military strategy today. The Titan were weapons of desperation, guided by pilots who never came back. Though their attacks were largely unsuccessful, their stories remain a stark testament to the brutal realities of the World War II. What do you think? Were Titan submarines an act of bravery or a futile sacrifice? Let us know in the comments. November 20, 1944, beneath the waves of the Philippine Sea, the Imperial Japanese Navy submarine I 47 moves silently through the depth. It carries a deadly payload for experimental weapons designed for a desperate mission. Inside the steel hull, Lieutenant Sekio Nishaniya sits in the quiet contemplation. In his hands, he holds a small box containing the ashes of his close friend, a fellow engineer and a co creator of the weapon he is about to pilot. Crocky had died in a tragic training accident, become the first casualty of this new and terrifying innovation. A voice breaks the silence. The submarine captain informs Nishniya that they have reached the launch point. He rises, clutching the box tightly, and walks toward the open hatch. Above him, in the dim red glow of the submarine's light, sits the weapons of his own design, a Titan, a manned suicide torpedo. It is the culmination of months of engineering and sacrifice to turn the tide of war in Japan's favor. When a final depth breath, Nishniya claims inside the cramped cockpit. Every dial, every bolt, every wire is familiar. He helped design them all. Now the machine he built will become his bomb. The hatch seals shut. The submarine's crew makes final preparations. Then, with a rush of compressed air, the Titan is released into the cold, dark sea. Nashnia grips the controls. His mission is clear: seek out and destroy an American warship at the cost of his own life. On November 20, 1944, the youth atoll operations aboard the I-47 Lieutenant Sekou prepares for deadly mission. The submarine has crept undetached into enemy waters, carrying a revolutionary yet terrifying weapon, the Titan, a manned suicide torpedo. Tonight, its creators will put it into the ultimate test, targeting anchored US Navy ships near Youth Atoll. Nishnia carefully sets down a small run containing the ashes of Lieutenant Kuroki, his friend and fellow engineer who perished during a chiton training exercise. Steadying himself, he inspects every dial, valve, and lever in the cramped cockpit. The weapon is much his creation as his grave. He allows himself a moment of admiration. We have made a beautiful creature, he mutters under his breath. He picks up the phone, connecting with the I-47's captain, who relays the final update. The targets are anchored dead ahead, 4.5 miles away. Nishnia responds with solemn and proud resolve.